Alright, so here we're going to be going over a couple things during this part of the video. We're going to be modeling our club or weapon. Here I'm using the Morrowind Daedric club. It's part of a larger mod pack that I have on the Nexus called Daedric Weapons Expanded V2. V1, not updating it anymore. I'm updating V2 now. V1 had some issues with the original weapons that I had there. I didn't like the texture, so I just decided to re-upload the whole thing and try it again. There's about 5 or 6 weapons done, and I have a couple more that I need to do. So today we're going to be doing the club. Now this part we're going to be importing the NIF file for size and orientation reference. We're just importing the Daedric War Axe that we got before, because the club from Morrowind and the War Axe from Vanilla Skyrim are pretty similar in size from what I can tell, so we're just going to be using that. It's not a one-for-one, just a general idea. This is also the part that you would normally import your reference photo, so I'd be importing my my club reference, but since I'm not going to be following it one-for-one, as I haven't been with any of the Morrowind weapons that I've been using for this mod, I'm not going to be importing it, but I'll show you how you can do that. Then we're going to model the low poly, the high poly. We're going to vertex paint the low poly, UV unwrap the low poly, and then triangulate it all at the end. Usually, you don't have to triangulate your game weapons or game props or whatever, but when it comes to Skyrim, NIF files only support triangulated faces, so we're going to be triangulating our faces. It's really simple. There's an action in Blender that just lets you do that instantly like that. It's super simple. Then we're going to be exporting the low poly and the high poly to FBX files, importing them into Substance Painter or your alternative program, whatever you're using. That could be Armor Paint, Mixer, Mudbox, what have you. And then we're going to be texturing the model, and then exporting the textures with the correct naming convention. I have a preset for it that I have specifically for Skyrim. I'll go over that and kind of how I put that together and how it allows me to use PBR textures in Skyrim, which is not something that people usually do. Usually they're using specular textures, but through the help of Billy Rowe, another modder on the Nexus, he's showed me and helped me figure out how to import those PBR textures into Skyrim. So today we're just going to be going over putting together our club and just modeling it straight like that. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so I have the reference pulled up on my second monitor here, so that's just going to be simple for me. You can have it pulled up wherever. So the first thing we're going to need to do is delete all that garbage, because we don't need it. And then we are going to import our NIF file. So the NIF file that you grabbed from earlier, Blender is really nice because it has an add-on that comes with Blender that allows you to just import NIF files and export them, but the export is a little if I'm gonna be honest. It doesn't work all the time. It's never worked for me. Maybe I just don't know how to do it. That's entirely possible. But we're not going to have to worry about that because I have a different method in how I do it. So, but today we're going to just be importing the NIF file. So to access the ability to import it, you're going to go to Edit and then Preferences. I'll bring this over here. And then in here, you have to make sure that you have Official and Community. And then you're just going to go up into the search bar and just type in NIF. And then there it is right there. And then all you do is click this little checkbox and it allows you to import and export. And as I said, this is native to Blender already, so you don't have to install any add-ons or anything like that. It's just right there. So now that we have that done, let's import our NIF file. We're going to go to File, Import, where is it? NIF, Desktop, because this is where we put it. Then Meshes, Weapons, Daedric, War Axe. There it is. And then import NIF. Let it think for a second. There it is. Alright, so as I said before, this is purely for size and orientation reference because we want to make sure that when we import it to the actual NIF file, our model, we aren't having to deal with translating in, rotating in, everything like that, because it's just a big pain in the butt. So there's a bunch of garbage on this model that you don't need for this. You just need the base weapon. So we're gonna click this, get rid of that. Actually, this is a better way to do it. So we're gonna find the base weapon, just like this, and we're just gonna bring it over here. Don't worry about where you put it, because you're not gonna need to. Then everything else that's there, just click delete. Select it all, then just delete it. Now we're gonna go back to this, and we're gonna go down to object properties, select all these, click 0, and then it's right back to where it started. Perfect. So now I like to go up here into my collection, and I like to change this as reference, and that just makes it easier for me to find. You can change it. You can set this up however you would like to. I'm going to show you guys how I set it up just to keep it a little bit more organized and a little bit more clean. But yeah, so let me bring this over here. So this is the thing that I'm going to be making today. It's pretty simple. Usually I would break these down a little bit just before I start, but this one's pretty straightforward and I don't really think that I need that personally. If you want to, go ahead and, you know, break down the image and kind of where you think parts are going to lie, but I'm just going to do this one in my head. So these two things right here, these little spiky bits, they're the same thing. There's just one's a lot bigger than the other. So we're only going to need to make one of these, and then we're just going to duplicate it and smack it there, into the middle of it. Now you can see, the biggest problem with these Morrowind weapons is that they're super, super low resolution, because Morrowind came out in like 2001, maybe 1999, I don't really remember. Super old game. So yes, you can kind of see what's going on here, but a little bit is up to your imagination. So these little grooves here, we could add those in and you know, put little gems into them and everything. That's what I'm gonna do, because I made the special material and substance designer that I have on all my Daedric weapons, expanded weapons that I've made for the mod. So I'm gonna be adding them. Then for these spikes here, same thing. These are just going to be a pretty simple cylinder. From what I can tell, it's going to be a cylinder that tapers off into more like a cube shape. So cylinder here, and then cube over here. That's going to be simple. I'll show you how to do that. Like I said, we're only going to have to make one of these. And then the rest of this club is really, really easy. It's just big cylinder up here. And then we're going to have to taper it off just a little bit to give it that roundness on top. And then it's going to taper down. And then once it hits about here, it's going to be a pretty constant width for the handle. And then it tapers a little bit right here. So we'll do that too, just a little bit. Also, you can see how on here it has these like little grooves here. Because Morrowind's weapons are so low poly and so low resolution, it's kind of hard to tell what this might be. My best guess is that it's most likely kind of like a wrapping on the handle, so we can add that in super easy. So we'll do that as well. So let's just stop talking about it and let's just do it. Alright, so I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to add in the cylinder that we want here, and then I'm going to tab into edit mode, R to rotate, X 90 degrees, and then, oops, I don't actually want any of that. I'm going to go back, cylinder. We're going to go down here, and because this is going to be a game object, we want it pretty low poly, especially because, as I said before, this is just our low poly model. We'll make, a lot of people don't do it this way. A lot of people make their high poly model first, and then make that into their low poly model. I kind of work backwards. It's just my personal preference of doing it. I know a lot of people don't do it that way. If doing high poly first and then low poly works for you, or vice versa, do whatever's easiest for you. This is just kind of how I do it. So we're gonna make the low poly first. Gonna tab this down to about 16 vertices. That looks good to me. Tab into edit mode so we don't mess with our translation or origin. R to rotate on the x-axis, and then we're going to do 90 degrees. Scale this down a little bit, because right now we're doing the handle. Now, you know what? We're going to do G to move, and then on the y-axis, we're going to do the top bit first. So we're going to expand this a little bit. That club looks about that size. 3 for face mode, G, move. Then we're going to go about there, because on this is about the area that they'll be holding it. So, and since it's a one-handed weapon, their hand is going to go just about in the middle of this. So, we're going to bring that back. So, it's about here is where you're going to want to start. About there, you're going to want to start tapering it off. E to extrude, and we're going to taper it a little bit. And we're going to extrude again. That's a chunky handle. So let's fix that. I don't like that. Let's do a little bit of that. Still a pretty chunky handle. So let's bring that down even more. It's a pretty good sized handle. Alright, now let's taper this bit off here. It was pretty sharp in the reference, so that's what we're going to do. This little button up here, this is your X-ray mode. It allows you to just kind of see through objects. It's pretty nice. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll go with that. We'll probably end up changing it up just a little bit later. This isn't a comprehensive tutorial about how to model or the basics of like the hotkeys or anything like that, so I'm not going to mention every single hotkey that I use, but when I do remember, I will try to let you guys know. I don't really like that. Let's bevel this. Maybe this is just a little bit too big. Yeah, this is just a little bit too big. Don't want to go too crazy with this. Alright, also, to slide a loop cut on its origin, you can just click G twice, and there you go, it slides. It's pretty helpful. I actually end up using that a lot. Actually, we're just gonna get rid of that. We're gonna dissolve that, and we're gonna do a little bit of that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, then we're gonna do, so once we have the very, very basic block out, actually I want to do this first. Since this one isn't a sharp taper like this one is, this one's pretty sharp down here. We don't want this one up here to be as sharp, so we're going to do I to inset, G to move that up just a touch, just enough to give that perception of roundness. Alright, then we're going to right click on our model, shade smooth, and it doesn't look too bad. Now, I don't like this. We're going to take that down just a hair. And then this one again. I'm not going to auto smooth this part. Yeah, I'm not going to auto smooth that part. Usually you would, especially on swords and things with sharp edges. You're going to want to have the auto smooth on because it does help keep those really sharp, fine edges on your model, and it just makes it easier to look at. Alright, so now you can see in the reference photo here, we have this like little inset bit. We're gonna make that real quick. That's simple. So we're gonna just eyeball it. It's not, it's about halfway. Maybe a little less than halfway. Let's bring it up here. Yeah, right about there. Then we're going to, then our loop cut that we just made, we're going to do Control B to bevel it, and then just kind of gives us two little loop cuts that we can use. And that's a pretty big inset. So we're going to make it pretty big. And then we're going to do Alt-E, and then extrude faces along normals to make sure that they don't get all wonky. And yeah, that looks about good. Now, I don't like how sharp these are, so I'm going to do S to scale on the y-axis, and just kind of bring them apart just a little, just a hair. Nothing crazy, just a little bit. Alright, that's pretty good. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where it kind of looks a little nasty here, and this is where auto smooth comes in really nice, especially if you're doing hard surface modeling, which is like what swords and stuff are. Clubs, despite the fact that I think this club is made out of metal, or like Skyrim's, whatever Skyrim's Daedric weapons are made out of, I think it's a metal. It looks like metal. Despite the fact that this is probably metal, I don't think I would consider this necessarily like super hard surface modeling, like a robot or something. This is really good for like robots and swords and stuff where like that metal really needs to be sharp. But this one doesn't need to be so sharp. This one we actually kind of want to keep a little soft. So we're going to keep it soft. Now, I don't like... We'll reapproach that. This isn't a huge deal right here. Usually, actually I'll just do it now. So you don't want to have a lot of faces that don't connect together. This is what's called an n-gon, and it's where basically a shape has more than 4 sides. You don't really want those, but since we're going to be triangulating this later to put into the game engine, it doesn't matter because it's going to triangulate that for us and we're not going to have any n-gons. But this is just something that I like to get ahead of myself, so I'm going to delete this face, grab all these edges here by using Alt and then click, and it's going to grab all of them. I'm going to go E to extrude, and I'm going to S to scale, bring that in just a little bit. Then we're going to click 1 to transition that into vertices, M to merge, and then at center, and then that kind of just gets rid of our n-gons for us. You don't have to do that on this in particular, because as I said before, we're going to be triangulating that later. But that's just to get ahead of the curve if you want to. We're going to do the same on this side. All right, cool. Oh yeah, and we want to save this. I have a habit of saving a lot. I suggest you get into that habit, because if you're going to spend 4 hours on this, or 3 hours, or what have you, however long it takes, you don't want to have all that work go into nothing. So I set up my projects pretty well. Here's my mods. This is my Morrowind, Daedric. Somebody's in trouble. And then, alright, we're going to do new folder, club. Get ahead of the curve here and just make our textures folder. Alright, and now we're going to do md club and save Blender file. Boom, there we go, saved. Now we don't have to worry about it. And you'll probably see down here pretty often that I'm saving. I save a lot. Just a habit at this point. So now we got the basics of our club figured out. These little wrappings here, we're probably going to add on a little bit later. That's not something we're going to have to worry about right now. Like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, now let's make these spiky bits. So this is going to name, so do what I just did. You just click on it, click on your object, press F2, and it's going to rename it for us. We're going to do club base LP. This is the low poly. And this is a pretty high poly for the low poly. It kind of depends on how you're feeling. Doesn't really matter too much. It's a little too many for a low poly, but I'm not gonna worry about it. It's not that big a deal. Actually, to clean this up a little bit, we'll just delete that. Still looks fine. Alright, cool. We're going to add the wrappings on later. Right now, I just used H to hide that. So right now, we are going to add in... We're going to add in the spikes. That's what I want to do next. Alright, let's grab ourselves another cylinder. Since we set it to 16 earlier, this one's automatically at 16. Yeah, these spikes will probably need about 16, so we're going to keep it like that. Move this. Oh, also, in Blender, let's just do this. Remember I was talking about N-gons before. So this is the cap fill type. Blender, down here, so when I respawn a new cylinder, this little pop-up happens. This is where I change the vertices. You can choose to have nothing, which has no cap fill, N-gon, or the triangle fan, which is what we made. I like to start out with the N-gon just because it's easier to model, and then later I'll change it. That's just me though. Kind of do whatever works best for you. This is not a 100% process for everybody. It's gonna be different for everybody. So let's make these spikes. So we're gonna tab into edit mode, rotate on the y-axis, and then we are going to, so these spikes, I wouldn't really call these spikes as much as I would just call them, I'm going to call them spikes, because I don't know a better word for them. But to me, these spikes don't look super sharp, so we're not going to make them super sharp. This is a blunt weapon, so these spikes are going to be pretty blunt. It looks like these are literally just made for beating somebody repeatedly with, and ouch. But yeah, so we don't need to make these overly large. Let's bring our club base back in. So, whoa, these are huge. Bring our club base back in. Alright, and we're gonna bring these over here. That's about right. I want these just a smidge higher. A smidge higher. Alright, so that's about right. And now, to make sure we're not going too crazy with it. Yeah, we got plenty of space. Alright, so let's do a little bit of this. I'm going to move this down and just the smallest bit. This reminds me of a Forsworn weapon. This is something you'd see them use. They're into all that weird shit. We're going to move this over here, so just a smidge more. And it's okay for this to be a little bit rough, especially because the Morrowind Daedric weapons, they're not particularly like, they're not crafted by the gods. They're not the greatest looking thing on the planet. I love them. I think they look great aesthetically. But from a practical, this is the finest weapon that's ever been created point of view, not so. They're a little bit crude, but I like that about them. Alright, so this doesn't have to be perfect. And that's only if you're making a Morrowind weapon or a crude weapon in general. If you're making a more fine weapon, something that's supposed to look like it's been crafted by somebody incredible, you're going to want it to be a bit more fine than what I'm doing here. But you didn't need me to tell you that. So I'm gonna add a loop cut here just so we don't mess with basically like this half of the mesh, because we're about to mess with this half of the mesh a lot. So we're gonna bring this over here because we need to make that square, as I said before, that's a cube. Let's grab this. And bring it over here like so. Now, let's mess with this a little bit. Going to loop tools. No. No, I don't like that much. Alright, so we're going to do something else instead. Ooh, I like this idea better. Alright, so we're going to delete all of this, faces, and then we're just going to do our little trick from before. Center. We're going to do the same thing over here just while we're at it. Faces. Boom, there we go. And I'm gonna move this out just a smidge. There we go. That's got a Morrowind feel to it. A little bit crude, a little bit nasty. Alright, so now I want to have a cube. But I don't want to have to spawn it in and then like line it up perfectly and all that fun stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my spike here, get this middle vertice that we just made, do Control A, sorry, gotta remember the hotkey for it. Control S, and then we're gonna do cursor to selected. And that's going to bring our cursor over here, so we're not going to have to line anything up. And then we're just going to spawn in the cube, scale it down a bit, bring it over here. You guys know the drill. And we're going to make it kind of... Bring this out a little bit. Alright, so this over here, from what I can tell, I think this tapers as well. You see how this kind of looks like it's a little bit tapered at the end here? So it's like thick over here and then tapered. That's what I think. Hard to tell. That's what I think. We're gonna do that. And then we're gonna add this little notch that's here. Alright, then we're going to fill all this in. Alright, cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. But we don't want this to be perfect. Remember, this is a pretty crude weapon. So we're gonna mess with it a bit here. And I don't think this is tapered enough. Let's do that just a smidge more. Grab these edges here. Bring this down. Look at that. Perfect. Perfect. Alright, cool. I like that. I like that. It's not the prettiest thing in the world right now. That's fine though. We'll make it prettier later when we do our high poly. And it's also got a little thingy up here. Little bit. So we're gonna add another loop cut. Just like, I don't like that. Maybe like, I don't like that. We're gonna leave it out. I don't like that. Alright, cool. So now that we got this, we have spike low poly. Alright, let's duplicate this with Shift D. I'm going to bring it down on the Y-axis. And then we're gonna, we're going to do Shift S and then cursor to world origin. Tab into edit mode, select everything with A, and then we're going to scale it down a smidge. That looks about right. Maybe bring this over a little bit, and then maybe we'll just grab all this. You can select this bit over here by just clicking on one of the faces and then pressing L, because it's not connected to this part here, so it's only selecting the faces that are adjacent and connected to it. So we're gonna bring this over here. Boom. Yeah, I like that. Alright, cool. So now we got the spikes done. Wow, this is coming together pretty quick. Not done yet. There's a lot more to do though. So now we gotta add those like little inset bits, and that's gonna be pretty easy because we already have the faces here since we're working on a cylinder. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab these faces here that are right in the middle. I don't know if they're on the other side. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say these little inset bits here. I don't know if they're on the other side. I'm gonna take a little bit of a guess-a-rooney and just say, yeah, probably. They're probably on the other side. And if not, well, I'll just look good for the game. Why not? So we're gonna select those faces, do a little bit of an inset, and then E to extrude along normals, and then just bring them down ever so slightly. Nothing crazy. And then we're going to go up to global here, and then we're going to, nope, we're going to go up to this little like chain looking thing. And then we're going to click on it, and then select individual origin so we can scale all these individually. Hit S to scale, and we're just going to bring them in a little bit. And we're going to bring them in on their X just a little bit. Nothing crazy. Bring them out on the Y a little bit. And yeah. So this would usually be a pretty good time to have the auto smooth on. But this is a big but. I'm not going to. I like the I like the smoother look to it, especially just because it's supposed to be a crude club. And once we do our high poly, it's not going to really matter too much. So now what I want to do, and this might be a little advanced for a low poly model. In fact, it's a little advanced for a low poly model. This is up to your discretion. This is something that I want to do. I'll probably catch flack for it, but I think that these have like a little bit of a lip coming out. Now that I'm looking at this, no, I was wrong. Okay, so what I was saying though was it looks like they have like a little bit of a lip coming out of them, like on the edges here, like it's protruding out of the side of the club. So we're going to add a loop cut into the middle of all of these little inset faces that we made. And then we're going to select them. We're going to do extrude along normals. Just bring them up a smidge. Boom, just like that. Now that's looking Daedric. That's what we're talking about. Alright, so now there's a couple little things. We can what happens? Solve edges. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. No, that's not what we're going to do. I like it like that. Alright, so no, we're gonna do that. So we're gonna go in here, grab all these extra edges here that I don't like. I'm just gonna get rid of them. Dissolve edges. Dissolve edges. Don't ever don't delete the edges, because if you delete the edges, bad things happen. Like this. And now you have to rebuild all these faces, and you don't want to do that. Just dissolve the edges. It'll also make sure that there's no leftover vertices there either or anything. So that's really nice. Alright, cool. So now in our reference image, we have these little, well, look to me like gems. They could not be. I could be totally wrong here. They might not be gems, but they look like gems to me. So we are going to add the gems in. And this is simple. You don't even really have to do this on a low poly. This could be more of a high poly thing, but like I said, this is more simplicity for me. So I'm just going to grab one of these little UV spheres here, and this is way too much, just way too much. So we're gonna bring this down to 8, this down to 4. Okay, maybe this to 8. Maybe 6. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna bring this down to 8 and 6. And then we're gonna select this down here. For that faces, delete those. My favorite little trick. Perfect. Alright, cool. We're gonna grab all this. How many has this got? That's 3, and that's 3. Alright, well, cool. Cool. Alright, so we're gonna make these real tiny, because these are just some tiny little gems. Bring them up here. Actually, they could stand to be a little bit bigger. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna bring them up like that. Rotate them on their X. They could be a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So now we're gonna make another one. There's 3. We gotta move these because remember this tapers. It's not gonna be perfect over time. And I'm hand placing these instead of using an array modifier because I actually don't want these to be perfectly spaced. I want them to be pretty close, but I want it to look handcrafted. I want it to look like somebody made this. And especially during medieval times, this is a really, really good way to add realism to your medieval weapons and such. Is that medieval times they didn't really have like they had measuring tools, but they didn't have like our perfect rulers of today, and they didn't have all this stuff to make their craft perfect. They just eyeballed everything. So if you want to make a pretty realistic sword or just medieval model to any degree, make it a little bit imperfect. That'll make it look a lot more realistic. You'd be surprised. So, and that's also just completely up to personal preference. You don't have to do that. So for these, I am going to, since we have our origin at the center of the world, I'm going to change this little chain from individual origins to 3D cursor. Now what I'm going to do is, because I want to mirror this, I'm going to hit S to scale, then -1, right? Right, and now it's all the way over here, and you're like, that didn't do anything. Like, that does not help. Watch this. So we're going to do R to rotate on the Z axis, and then we're going to do 180 degrees, and perfect. It's directly on the other side. Now you're saying, well, I could have just used a mirror modifier. You're right. So now what we're going to do is, since this is so perfect, we're going to, and what's weird to me is that even though this one up here is so much smaller than this one down here, it also has 3. It also has 3 little gems on it. So, I mean, who am I to say that it doesn't deserve 3 gems? But we are going to add our gems. Alright, cool. Then we're going to grab these, duplicate, same drill, same drill, 180 degree. There we go. Perfect. Now we got all of our little gems. I'm not going to shade these smooth, and I'll tell you why. Gems aren't smooth. They're very hard. These hard edges, the material that I made has a lot of hard edges anyways, so, I mean, really it wouldn't matter. But gems are hard. Keep the edges really hard. Keep them clean. Keep them crisp. I wouldn't even bevel these in the high poly version. I wouldn't. That's just me. Doesn't really matter. If you want to, go ahead. So now we got that. The last big thing to do on this is kind of just get those wrappings in and all these like little tiny details throughout it. So these wrappings here, yeah, we're just gonna do the wrappings last. So there's 1, 2, 3 instances of wrappings. Those are gonna be like little leather bands that we're gonna add on, and then all this other little detail in here, you see, like this here, like all these like little grooves and stuff, like these little dots that are here for some reason. We're gonna actually sculpt those. So I'm gonna, so basically what I'm gonna do with this is that I'm going to take the high poly model, I'm gonna combine it, then I am going to, I'm gonna add a subdivision surface modifier onto it, subdivide the crap out of it, do a little bit of multi-resolution. Yeah, I'm gonna do some multi-resolution. Grab my graphics tablet, go into sculpt mode, and we're just gonna sculpt it. We're gonna make it look all pretty. That's gonna be a high poly model. It's gonna give us a lot of detail. So that's gonna be the fun part. Now here's the thing. I don't like. Oops. I don't like this. I think it needs to be a little bit of a harder taper. Oops. Yeah, just a little bit of a harder taper. Let's get our vanilla reference in here. Move this there. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, just a little bit. We want to make sure that this doesn't change size too much. What are you doing? Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Alright, cool. So our low poly is mostly done. Like I said, we gotta add in those wrappings. So what I'm gonna do, and this is a little bit of cheating, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go down here, bevel this to about the size that I want. Actually, I'm going to bevel this to about the size that I want. Grab these faces, do Shift D, grab them, P to separate by selection. Alright, tab out of here, hide this for a second, and then get rid of this. Faces, or dissolve edges. We don't want that. Alright, so let's grab these wrappings back. Hold on, I gotta change this. Spike 2. This is spike 1. Alright, so these are wrappings. We're gonna do wrapping 1. I think that's how you spell wrapping. Low poly. Alright, cool. So now, it seems to be about 3 bands per wrapping. So we're gonna add 2 loop cuts and then just do the tiniest little bevel on them, then delete those faces that it makes, right? So that's gonna give us our wrappings. Then we're going to solidify this by adding a solidify modifier. And, oh, solidifying in the wrong direction. So we're gonna offset it in this direction. Bring down the thickness, just a smidge, just a hint. And then we're gonna duplicate these and bring them up here. Same thing, same wrappings. No, nothing crazy. And then we're gonna do the same thing up here again. Oops. Let's do median point. Oh. Oh. And this up here a little bit. And they're a little bit too wide up here. So we're gonna have to scale them down a smidge. Rotate them, these ones up here, because they're on a curve. And let's scale them just now. Actually. Back just a hint. This is just a lot of playing around and finagling with it until you get it exactly how you want. But that looks pretty good. That I like. That looks pretty good. Alright, cool. That looks pretty good. Go with that, apply the solidify modifier. Oops. Why are you not included? Let's solidify you. Grab you guys. Then Control J to join all of you. And look at that. Got a big old happy family of wrappings. Now, what if I were to... This is just me testing something, so don't do this if you're following along. What if I were to dissolve those edges? Nope. We need those edges. It has been proved to me that we need those edges. Alright, so got our edges. I don't even know why I said wrapping 1. I think I expected to make this into multiple, but no. It's all the same thing. We'll just make it 1. Alright, cool. Now, our low poly's done. That was really quick, and this looks like nothing. It looks like garbage. Low poly models usually don't look that great. Like, they look fine usually, but they aren't really what you're looking at in game. Technically, yeah, you're looking at the low poly model, but it's that texturing and the high poly baking that you're actually seeing. Like, so this doesn't look the greatest, but it's going to. We're going to grab my graphics tablet, and we're going to make our high poly model. So, let's grab all this, and what is this sphere? Oh, it's our gems. Gems. Oops. LP. Got our gems. Alright, so we're going to grab all this, press M, new collection, LP, that's low poly. Cool, now we got a low poly collection, and we can just get rid of it as much as we want. Actually, before I make the high poly, this is something that I like to do. Before I make the high poly, I want to UV unwrap this whole thing because I don't want to have to do it later. That's it. I just don't want to have to do it later. So we are going to UV unwrap this whole thing, and thankfully, cylinders, they're the best. They're so easy to UV unwrap. So we're gonna go up to UV editing, and this is how I do it. We're gonna make a new image, grab both of them, 4098. That's right. So that's gonna be a 4K UV map, and then we're just gonna name this something stupid like UV. Color, I always put this to down, or I always take the alpha off of it. I realize there's literally a button right here that adds alpha. I don't know why. That's just how I've been doing it since forever. You don't have to do that. Click OK. And then here is your new thing. Now the reason that we did that is because if your UV map is too small, it's going to hinder the texture quality of your models. A lot of people do a 2K map. I do a 4K. I just like big, really high detail textures, and then I'll export the textures as 4K sometimes, or I'll just do them as 2K. It's kind of up to you. All of my mods on the Nexus, they all have 4K textures as the base for the mod. That's the one that I recommend because I think they look the best. It's up to you though. And then I have a 2K version of them. In this tutorial, I'm not going to be going over how I do my 2K versions, or I might. It's as simple as bringing them into Photoshop and then scaling them down to 2K and then exporting them as DDS and then compiling them into the package for the mod. That's really it. It's not that difficult, but I'll show you how to do it. That's later though. So now that we have the UV map, actually we're going to keep this open. We have the UV map now. And so the way that you UV unwrap in Blender is I'm going to grab these edges here. So a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this, totally guilty. I'll own up to it all day long. I used to do this like crazy. I would just select the whole thing, click U, Smart UV Project, done. And I said that was my model. It was done. And this works. I still use Smart UV Project for some things. I'll give you an example right now. So here's the longsword that I made. And you can find this on Daedric Weapons Expanded. So this is the longsword I made. This little guy here, you notice he doesn't have any red on him because he doesn't have any edges on him. Notice, if we were doing UV editing, notice that his UV map looks funny. It's got all these little bits, and that's because I smart projected him. Yes, I'm lazy, but it worked. A lot of people still really like the mod, and nobody could tell the difference. These extremely complex models, they're difficult to UV unwrap, and it's not really worth your time trying to finagle with it. Sometimes it is. If you're really looking for I recommend just practicing it, doing it a couple times, just to make sure that you know how to do it in the future in case you're ever using a program that doesn't have this capability, because some programs don't. Maya, to my knowledge, and I know a lot about Maya to my knowledge has capabilities to UV unwrap for you. They're just not very good. And they're not that smart. They're not nearly as smart as Blender. So I would recommend trying it a couple times. Do it yourself, and make sure you know how to do it before you take the easy way out, because it's really easy to take the easy way out, but you'll feel a lot better about yourself if when you take the easy way out you can say, well, I knew how to do it, I'm just saving time. And that's what I do, because I could do it, I just don't want to. Alright, so let's get back to sorry about that tangent there. Let's get back to, so we're going to want to hide our seams here. And so hiding seams isn't overly difficult. What I usually do is hide them in a place that the player's never going to see them. So let's open up our whole model here real quick. And I just okay, no, I'm just looking at this the wrong way. Alright, so where's the player going to see? If the player's holding it, like, let me get an example here. If the player is holding, take this can. player's holding it like this, right? So this part of the can is the front. This is where the spikes are, right there. So the player's holding it like this. From this perspective, the player is never going to see this side. It's always going to be in front of them out of sight. So this, typically on weapons, if you can hide your seams there, that's where I would hide your seams. Or, if you're going to do the handle and you think, oh, well, I don't want to hide it there because, you know, what if an NPC is using it? Then they might see it. I don't want them to see that. Well, then the best place to hide it would be here on this side, pointing towards the player, so the player's hand will be covering it, so they can't see it. That was just an excuse for me to take a drink. But those are kind of two really good places to hide your seams. So just always hide them in a place where you think the player is not going to see them. On handles, you can do it under the hand, or on the rest of the weapon, you can do it right in front, so they won't ever see it. Most players won't see it anyways, but for those particularly crafty ones, you want to be careful of. Alright, so let's do this. Since it's a cylinder, I want one seam going through the whole thing. I don't want to deal with multiple seams. So we are going to grab this seam right here, get rid of that, grab that, and this one's tricky. This one's tricky because it doesn't taper like this one. This one has kind of like a little bit of a harder edge. Actually, we can even get rid of that because in the reference it's pretty sharp. So actually what we're going to do is, so this one we don't have to worry about. But, this is a big but. Actually, why do I have that here? Sorry, I'm just going off on tangents like crazy. Alright, so this one right here is a little bit tricky because the easiest way to do it would just go like that and UV unwrap really nicely. But then you have this weird seam on top. And yeah, you can hide it in texturing just by like painting around it and stuff. But it's always a little bit tricky. So this is what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to just put my seams there, and that should do the trick. It should be fine. Mark seam. Or now we're just gonna do it that way. That's how that's probably how I would do it normally anyways. So that's what we're gonna do. And we'll just hide this seam by painting over it. It'll be pretty easy to clean up. Alright, cool. And so like the reason we're making one big seam down the side, and that's most of our UV unwrapping right there, is because when it unfolds, and the reason that we have these rings. So the way that Blender is going to project this is that it is going to basically look at this, and it's going to split this in half and take off this little round piece here. It's going to just yank that off. It's gone. So it's going to just take it all away. Blender's going to take it away, and then it's going to rip it in half, and it's going to lay it down flat. But the reason we need to take this part off is because when it projects it like that, so if we didn't have these seams here, let's get rid of this seam. So if it were to do that, then the problem is that it's also going to want to project. It's not going to project this nicely because it's a flat plane, and you can't really unroll a flat plane because it's always going to be flat, and then there's going to be a bunch of stretching on top, and you don't want that. Alright, cool. So this is going to take its own little shape, and we're just going to project this from view, or yeah, we're going to project it. Now we're just going to unwrap it. Alright, so now these edges are a similar situation where they're just close enough that I would almost add seams. But I don't think we need to. We'll try it out. Alright. But these here, these are some pretty sharp edges. So we're gonna have to grab all those. Actually, this whole thing could probably be projected. Yeah, it can be projected from the top. We're gonna grab these here. Gonna mark those seams. And the way that I'm marking seams, I should have said this before, is I grab these edges and then I do Control E and then mark seam. And then to get rid of it, I can clear the seam. I want those. Alright, we're gonna grab these. For some people, this might be too many seams. You're gonna say, "Oh, you're adding too many seams, and it's gonna have all these weird. It's gonna look bad." Trust me, I'm a professional. No, that is a genuine concern. Is adding too many seams? Well, yes, it'll make your life in UV unwrapping extraordinarily easy. It might make the model look bad. So UV unwrapping is really a balancing act between how well you can hide your seams, how many seams you want to have, and how good you want your model to look. Because ideally, you would never want any seams. But that's impossible. Don't ever think you're gonna get that. Trust me, I've tried. So that's pretty well UV unwrapped. We're gonna take it for a test ride right here. Just gonna actually, I have Zen UV and UV Packmaster 2. Two wonderful add-ons that I absolutely recommend, but they're very expensive. And I understand that a lot of people can't afford them. I went years just UV unwrapping with whatever Blender had at the time. I didn't have any of these fancy add-ons, but because I'm fortunate now and I use it enough, I felt as though it was a justified purchase for me. If you have the extra income, the extra money, and you can spare it, I would absolutely recommend it. I think they're wonderful add-ons that make your life a lot easier. But, so, I will try and use them as little as possible. I will only use them for, like, checking things here, but I can't promise I'm going to 100% not use them, because they are nice. Alright, so now that we have it all UV unwrapped, we're going to grab the whole thing, unwrap, and now here's a problem. I am a silly guy. Alright, well, the base handle unwrapped really well. We are actually going to add a checker node so we can check our UV. That did not unwrap well. I completely just lied to you. Whew, that's bad. So we're going to clear that scene, and then we're going to do the whole thing again. Unwrap. And that is, that's still not good. That is still pretty bad. So we're going to do it this way. Mark seam. Clear seam. And then, oops. And then mark seam again. Gonna get rid of that. Cursor. And we're gonna shrink that down a little bit because we want it pretty. That adds a little bit of extra geometry, but it will help the UV unwrapping quite a bit. So that's still not great. What the hell is going on there? This whole thing is not unwrapping very well. What in tarnation? Is the scale not right? Let's try that. Nope. Didn't do anything. Alright, so let's grab this then. Also, once you have a UV unwrapped, the pressing L on it will grab certain sections of it, the sections that are divided. It'll still keep them together, but it'll grab the divided sections. So it's a little annoying sometimes, but it's also extremely helpful other times. It kind of depends on what you're looking at. We're going to... What? Oh, okay. It's on the wrong axis. not doing it right. Alright, what if we... It's not usually how I like to do things, but that is still really, really bad. UV unwrap. Yeah. It's pretty decent looking. What if I just add a seam? Alright, so like this part of the model is still not looking great. What? God's name going on? So we'll grab that. Unwrap. See if that fixes it. Yeah, okay, so those are pretty good. I just needed to add a couple more seams to alleviate some of the pressure. This down here. Oh, okay, no. This is actually perfectly fine. Huh. Alright, so yeah, sometimes you just need to play around with it, add some more seams where it's needed. Kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. I like to sometimes just really bring this out. We're going to undo that in a second, but just to make sure like these are looking real good. And they are. They're looking pretty decent. Down here, don't really have any stretching. Is it stretching a little bit? Yeah, it's stretching a little bit. Oh. Duh. That's because we could actually probably use a couple more seams in here, if I'm being honest. I don't like adding tons of seams. I don't. But just how it has to be sometimes. Alright. Now a little bit of this. Let's see if that alleviates some of the pressure on this. Bring that up like that. And yeah. That's pretty good. Nope, it's not. That is not good at all. See how it's stretching like crazy there? Oh, I know why. I can tell you exactly why. I'll tell you right now. Alright, let's just test it out on this one first. So we'll do this here. Large seam. See what that does for me. No, it's not. And it's not really like. It's not really that stretched. It's mostly just going in a funky way that I don't much like. Well, whatever. It's good enough. Alright, so let's UV unwrap it. Yeah, it's really not going to be overly noticeable, if I'm going to be honest. What if I then do this? Maybe. Just acting funny in here. Like I said, not really going to be a noticeable thing. A little tiny bit of stretching on this isn't really going to make or break the model. Because it's really not stretching that bad. It's just a little bit wonky. Let's see. What if I grab these things and just project them from view? Project from view. Now that is not good. That is not good. Badly projected from view. Grab these here. Get rid of those. And mark seam. And we'll see about UV unwrapping those. Going through my process here a little bit, you can see firsthand. Unwrap. Now that's hot. That's hot. Alright, cool. Now we just gotta do that with the rest. Goody me. Alright. Alright, there we go. So now, we got everything the way we want it. We can just unwrap all this. And scale it up like that. Just check out our UVs. And that is a good UV. That's a good UV. Take that any day of the week. Alright, cool. So now, we've run into another little issue here. There's a lot of unused space here. We could use that. Use that up. I'm actually going to... Nope, not yet. Okay, so basically the way that I'm going to do this is that this whole thing is going to be made out of... metal, like ebony colored metal. The same metal that I use for all my other weapons. But those little wrappings are going to be made out of leather, and these little gems that are going to be on the inside are going to be made out of the little gem material that I have. So the problem is that since we want this whole bit here to be made out of the same material, it has to have the same textile density, which is how much space it's taking up on the UV map. And so when I just unwrap it like that, it automatically gives it all the same textile density, or something very, very close to it, which is nice. But the problem is that, yeah, some of these, it doesn't use up the whole thing because it doesn't pack it well. I can pack it though, using UV Packmaster 2, and it does a phenomenal job. I mean, just look at all that space it's using now. That's what I'm going to do. Usually the best way to do it for somebody who doesn't have the capability to have UV Packmaster 2, which I highly recommend. I think it's like $20, $25, something like that. UV Packmaster 2 has saved my life on numerous occasions. It's incredible. So I'm going to pack my islands here. Let's get our UV coverage. That's 74%. What was it before? So I didn't check. It's 49%. That's really bad. Typically, you want to keep your UV coverage at about 55% absolute minimum. That's still not great. I'm going to be honest, like, it's okay. It's not great though. You want to keep it as high as possible, because if you get it as high as possible, that's going to give you a lot of space on your model itself for your textures. That's just what 55% is kind of like the absolute lowest I would go. If you can't get it any higher than what you have it at now, no matter how many hours you put into trying to get it perfect, that's okay. But try and get it to 55% absolute minimum. Ideally, you'd want to add more like 60 to 65. That's a pretty decent range to be in. This brought me to 74%. That's pretty good. Now, here's the thing. We are going to be vertex painting this, so it's only going to be one UV map for everything. Typically, you don't have to do that. On a weapon, you're going to want to do that because it's just one solid object. But if it's like a house or this big complicated monstrosity that has like multiple different materials on it and tiny little details and massive details, you can get away with using multiple materials, which will give you multiple UV maps. But for our purposes today, I like to keep it to one material, especially if it's going into a game engine. You want to keep it as few UV maps as possible per object, just because it makes your whole life a lot easier. But yeah, I would keep this to one UV map because it's totally doable and it'll still look great. So let's UV unwrap the rest of this. We're going to hide this for now. Gems. Gems are going to be easy because what I really like about these is that we're going to just all these. I honestly should have UV unwrapped these before I copy and pasted all of them, or I duplicated all of them. I would really, really recommend doing that, especially if you have just like these very little things here that are going to be made over and over again, so you don't have to mess with. Oh, oops. UV unwrap these. And how do those look? probably look fine. Let's check. Let's check. Let's check. Checker. Pick these up here. Yep, those look fine. Alright, cool. So. They're a hint a little wonky, but they're okay. They're such little details that you really aren't gonna notice them. A little bit wonky, but they're totally fine. So, one thing that I really like about Zen UV is that it has this capability to what is called stacking. And it stacks similar UV islands on top of each other so you can save space on your UV maps. And it is awesome. I'm going to put these to the side because I'm going to manually place them in. Because usually when you have stacked objects, UV Packmaster is pretty good about it, and so is Zen UV occasionally. But Base Blender, if I were to pack these right now, oops. If I were to pack these right, well, I mean, like, this is actually a perfect example. I click Pack Islands, and it's just doing a whole bunch of wonky stuff because they're stacked. If they weren't stacked, it wouldn't matter. But sometimes when you try and pack them, especially in Base Blender, so we'll show you this. You pack islands, it unstacks them. It's like, what was all that one button click of work worth then? I'm just gonna throw them in manually whenever I have the spot to do it. So I'm gonna put them over to the side over there. Those are done. Easy. Spikes, again, easy. Actually, again, I should have UV unwrapped this first spike before I duplicate it into another. That's my bad. That's just me being silly. But it's fine. It's totally okay. We're just going to UV unwrap both, and it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to do that. And that looks good. Mark seam. Let's do a little bit of a, oh, forgot this guy over here. Grab these guys here. Seams. Alright, cool. And then we're going to grab this whole thing. You unwrap. Boom. Done. Alright, let's actually double check this. We're going to grab the checker. These, a little bit too big for me to be able to tell what's going on. These are good. That's a good UV. Take that any day of the week. Dang. Alright. We can pack these real quick. It's not perfect. It's actually pretty good. But we're going to be repacking all of this together at the end anyways. Because as I said before, they're all going to the same thing. Going onto the same UV map. Sorry. Alright, grab this, do that, that. Oops. Mark seam. That's a little bit of cheating right there, but it makes your life easier. You just get rid of these guys here. Alright, mark seam. I just UV unwrap this whole thing in one go. I'm so good. Alright, unwrap. There you go again. And then we'll just pack it. It'll probably pack it the same, yeah, pack it the exact same way. We don't really need to check it because it's the exact same as before. Turn that off. Cool. Spikes are done. Now all we have left to do is the wrapping. And again, I sound like a broken record, but it's because I'm an idiot. I should have UV unwrapped this before I copied and pasted it a bunch. Silly me. Duplicated it rather. but these are pretty easy. These are really, really easy. Oh, God. It's not easy getting into all these little crevices, though. Alright. Now, so, again, this is where we have to think about hiding the seams. The inside seams don't count, you can put those anywhere, but on the outside, this, if we get our vanilla reference, he's holding it, or he or she, your character, is going to be holding it so their hand is here, covering this. I mean, it's not really going to be covering it well, but you get the idea. You could choose to put them there, but since the hand is going to be more right here, you don't know if you want to do that, because this is going to be in the forefront. So you wouldn't want to put the seams there for the outside. You want to put them on this side. That's just me, though. You can play around with it, test it out. It's not the end of the world. Alright, well, those are some pretty good seams. I'm just going to mark seams on the back later. And I'm just going to go through and do the rest of this. Seams. Alright, cool. Now we're gonna unwrap this baby. Oop. Which one's this guy? Who got messed up? Now we're gonna have to look at all this because you can see all this is perfect, but this little guy right here, somebody forgot a seam. I'm guessing it's on this one. That's my guess. Take bets in the comments below. Where somebody didn't UV unwrap this right. God, whoever that guy is must suck. Ah, there you are. Mark seam. UV unwrap. Now it's perfect. Totally fine. Totally kosher. Alright, then we're going to pack these islands. Done. Wrappings are done. And you know when they say the wrappings are done, the rest of the club is as well. So now that that's all done, I'm going to take off this checker pattern here. I could check the UVs on those, but I'm very, very confident in them. I've done these little cylinders a million times. Alright, cool. So we're going to grab all of this. We're going to duplicate it. You don't have to. This is just how I like to do it. And then this is going to be a combined one. So MD Club LP. And then I am going to throw this outside of the LP collection into its own little thing here. I'm going to get rid of those. And here, now that this is finished, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? We are going to deselect that because we don't want to group these together with the rest of them. We're going to pack these islands. Look at that. Look at that. Perfect. So, I think it messed them up. Brought them down there. I don't like that. Because these don't need to be the same textile density as everything else. Technically, the wrappings don't need to be either. It's fine that they are. It doesn't really matter too much. Alright. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's a seam right there, so when I pressed L on all these guys, it didn't grab them. And yeah, you'd be right. It did only grab the outside. But when you do Shift and then numpad plus, oops, Control and numpad plus, it just grabs adjacent faces and now it has everything. So we're gonna go over here, bring those guys out here, move them here, scale them up a little bit so we can get those nice crystals showing, and then grab everything. And let's see, they don't need to be that big, but let's just see how big I can get them and where I can fit them. I'm feeling here. I'll get them a little bit bigger than they were before, And so now that we have our UVs kind of lined up how we want them, I can probably scale these up just a smidge. Let's grab. So you gotta be careful that we don't grab anything else. Scale these up just a smidge. And you can scale up things. So like, yeah, if you press S and scale them up, it's like a little bit finicky, it's a little bit touchy. If you hold down Shift while you're scaling, it scales them a lot slower. And you can do that when moving objects, so like this, moves them a lot slower instead of like this. Very cool. And that is pretty good. I like that. I like where that is right now. So we're gonna keep that there. The UVs are pretty much finished. Yeah, look how they're sitting. All right, so we're gonna go back to our layout here. Gonna do Shift C to recenter myself, just so my camera's not all funky. And now we are going to vertex paint these guys. So let's do that. All right, so we're going to tab into edit mode. And if you've never vertex painted in Blender before, that's totally fine. I'm going to show you how. It's very simple. So first I'm going to grab all the stuff that I want to be metal. So we're just going to use L here. Just going to use L and grab those faces that we want to be metal. So actually, now that I've grabbed most of this, I'm just going to hold down Control and plus just to grab everything, because I want the entire club base to be metal. That's just me. We also want these spikes here. I'm going to grab these and then do the same thing. Just make sure we grab everything. And then we're going to go up to where it says Edit Mode. We're going to go to Vertex Paint. Then we're going to click this little paint mask guy here. We're going to click the face button, so it has everything. We're going to grab a color, and you can grab any color. Then you're going to do hold Shift and then press K. And everything that we had selected in Edit Mode, it's going to change the face into red, because we just made it red. All right, so now we can hide all that. We're going to grab these guys here. Just go through, grab all these guys, and do the gems next. Grab all these guys here. Same process as before, just make sure we have everything selected. Now, since we've already been in Vertex Paint mode, we can just press Tab, bring us right back to it, and we'll just make these guys pink. Shift K, done. All right, hide those guys, and now all we have left is wrapping. So I'm gonna select all of them. Then we're gonna go back to Vertex Paint mode, grab them, Shift K, boom, blue. All right, now, so that we can unhide everything that we just hid, we're going to do Alt-H, bring back everything, and then we're going to go into here, back to Vertex Paint mode, just to make sure that we have everything. If there's any white left, you want to make sure that you grab that and give it to its respective color. So, now that that is finished, we can go to Object Mode, and our low poly is done. It's UV unwrapped, it's vertex painted, it's not triangulated though. We're gonna wait on that because I want to do the high poly before I triangulate it. So we actually, you know what? No, we're not gonna do that. We are just going to take this, going to duplicate it, rename it. So this is going to be our high poly. Done. High poly. We're gonna hide it. Now this one. Now we can go in here, go to our modifiers tab down here, modifier properties, add modifier. We're going to do triangulate and then just apply it. And now everything is triangulated. So this could, at this stage, it can be just directly imported to the game right now. But we're not going to do it because we got other stuff to do. So, I'm going to bring back our high poly. And so this is pretty good. But since it's a high poly, we're going to want to add some extra subdivisions to it. So we can, we want to add enough loop cuts so these guys are squares, so it's subdivides all nice and pretty. And it doesn't need to be perfect, just pretty general. And it doesn't need to be a lot. You don't need to be conservative about it. You can be pretty liberal with it. I think I'm using that correctly. 2 words. Let's grab these guys here. Get 3 more on this guy. I can use 5. And yeah, those are pretty good. We'll just add 2 there and 2 there. Alright, and yeah, those are pretty good. I realize that these are rectangles. It's not going to be a huge deal. The wrappings are already pretty much almost perfect squares, so we'll just keep those how they are. And yeah, it's pretty good. So we're going to, now, we're just going to save real quick. Now we got this. You're looking at this and you're probably saying, that's pretty high poly already. But we're sculpting. So this is going to be just insanely high poly. We're going to need a lot of faces to make sure that we get those really, really clean, crisp sculpts in there. You don't have to sculpt for your high poly if you don't want to, and if your computer can't handle it, that's totally fine. However, I would, if you're able to and you have the sculpting skills and capabilities, I would recommend sculpting because usually it turns out to have a really, really good effect. So that's what we're doing today. So now we're going to subdivide it. We're going to go subdivision 2. Now you're looking at it and you're like, that is not right. And you're right, that's not right. So we're going to grab actually just all these guys here. I'm going to grab all these guys. 2, get rid of these extra things here. Because we want these edges to be a little bit sharper than they are right now, because they are not sharp enough. We don't want them to be too sharp, just a little bit sharper. Excellent, grab the face, or edge. That guy there. This guy, this guy. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Alright, so now we're going to do Shift E. Just bring this up a little bit. Oops, what's going on there? No, I want median point. Like I said, don't want them too sharp, but we want them a little bit sharper. That's pretty good. And shade smooth on all this. That's looking pretty good. That's pretty good. You can also do it on these guys here. I'm going to leave it though. No, I'm not. Not gonna leave it. I want these edges on the wrappings to be just a smidge sharper. So I feel like they're a little bit too weak right now. So these. There we go. Now I did. All right, now we're gonna bring this up here, and we're just gonna scale it up a little bit. Now it's gonna be a little bit slow, because the computer's processing a lot here, but it's okay. Bring it down a little bit. Boom. There we go, just like that. That is a little bit better. Those are some a little bit thicker wrapping. Now you can do the same thing up here. I'm not gonna do it all along the edges of these middle, of these like extrusion bits here. I'm just gonna do it on the inside edges. So I want those to be a little bit sharper. But the outside edges, I don't want those to be too sharp. I want them to be a little bit excuse me. I want them to be a little bit softer. Alright. Maybe I'll test it out just to see. We'll see. Alright, I think I grabbed all of them. So now we're going to go in like this, and we're just going to make them just a smidge sharper. Yeah, that's the money right there. That's good. That's hot. Alright, cool. So we got this mostly figured out. The high poly has been smoothed out, and it is high poly now. But not quite high enough for sculpting. I'm gonna grab my graphics tablet here. If you don't have a graphics tablet, you can probably do most of the sculpting with a mouse, honestly. That's how I used to do a lot of my sculpting before I got this. So I'm gonna get rid of that guy there. Alright, now it has been a little bit of time since I sculpted. Alright, cool. So let me bring my reference back up so I can see. Alright, so there's gonna be a couple things that we want to do here. We are gonna want to get these grooves in here. That's for sure. That's a done deal. Want to get those. And then also these like little dimples in here. I want to get those and kind of flatten these parts out a little bit like it is in the reference. And whatever this is here, I think these are little like extrusions like into the handle. I like those. I want to get those in. And I might, because it's up here and a little bit crude and rough, I might rough that up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see. Also, on my models, I don't like to go perfectly 1-for-1 with Morrowind. I think the weapons look great, and I think they're a really, really, really great place to start. But I want to... sorry about my chair squeaking. It's a older chair. I like to take a little bit of creative liberty with them, because I never claim that I make things 1-for-1, like a perfect representation. I like to add a little bit of my own artistic flair onto it. So that's what we're gonna do. I do like to keep it pretty close though. I don't like to go too crazy because I think these have been extremely well made. So yeah, now we're gonna go up to sculpting mode. Just do some sculpting here. As I said before, we are going to want to use Dynatopo. That's what I like to use. Just click OK. Then we're going to go down here. So here's the thing. There's a bunch of different methods for this. We are going to want to do constant detail. So it doesn't matter if we're going in or out, because in this other one, relative detail has this thing where it will give you more or less resolution based on how far away your camera is. And I don't like that. I like to have a pretty constant detail just so things aren't looking wonky. And then resolution, I usually do about 25 to start. I'll draw on this a little bit here. That's alright. Probably get it up to like 30. I think 30 would be okay. Yeah, I like that. And I want to do smooth shading. Let's see. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Alright, cool. So these little grooves here that I was talking about earlier, we're going to flatten out this little area here. And actually, I'm going to turn on this so it's constant on both sides. And I'm just going to smooth this area out here to make this a little bit flatter. And then I'm going to take, learn that today. We're going to turn this up to, let's say, 45. That should be good. Yeah, that's alright. Got those little dimples. Oops. Add one right here. Now, you might also be wondering, hey, it says add over here, but you're subtracting. I realize that. When you hold down Control and do it, it will do the opposite of whatever direction you have set. So that's just, I actually use that a lot more than I maybe should. So we can get a little bit of this in here. Also, I'm smooth shading right now. I'm sorry, I'm smoothing this out right now. And I realize that I don't have the smooth tool on. If you hold down Shift, no matter what tool you're using, it will always smooth it out, which is really nice. And it'll use the, I don't want, actually, maybe I do want to flatten this. No, I want to smooth it. And it'll always use the parameters set on your smooth tool. So, oops, I'm going to keep that normal radius. We're going to bump the strength up just a hair. Let's see. Yeah. Sounds good. Use a flat tool, just get this pretty level. I'm just eyeballing stuff here. And then we'll go back to our tool from before, bump this back down to 15. And then we'll do a little bit of this. Yeah, that's good. I like that. But what I could do here is, I might like this more, is take the lip. What if, actually, I kind of like this. Not something super crazy, but just that littlest bit of detail there goes a long way. There we go. I like that. I like that. Alright, cool. And this side, we have these grooves. We have these grooves. We never added them. And yeah, you could have added them in the modeling, and it might have looked good, but I wanted to add them during this stage here. So that groove was a little bit smaller than the rest, according to the reference. So we're gonna bring this up. We're gonna double the size of the brush. There's 2 more here. I'm just gonna add 2 more of these little grooves here. Get them all groovy. And oops, messed up the wrapping a little bit. And it's okay if it messes up the wrapping a little bit. I actually didn't really hate how that looked. So, got those little grooves, little groovy guys there. Maybe a little bit closer. Perfect. And yeah, it looks rough. It's not really like the prettiest, most perfect thing to look at, but this is just to get the shapes down. This is the shapes that we want for the model when we texture it. So yeah, it's not gonna be the most beautiful thing to look at without all the texturing and all the fancy little doodads on it, but it still will look good. So, perfect. Perfect. I like those grooves. I'm happy with them. And they have these little raised bit there. Both sides. So I'll add those in. It's only on the top 2 for some reason. Alright, there we go. Alright, cool. So we got that. I want to just mess this up a little bit. I don't like how perfect it is up here. Smooth that out a little bit. Kind of make it a little lumpy, a little nasty. So this thing's just seen some use, you know? You don't want this to be perfect. You want it to have a little bit of damage on it and smooth out. Not too much though. Don't want to go like too crazy with it. But you don't want it to be perfect. Get some of this smooth in. Just rough it up a little bit. Give it some texture. And like, yeah, you're not hitting anybody with the indented bit or the handle base bit. That's what I'm trying to say. The base of it, because you got these spikes here. But it would probably take a little bit of damage over time, and that's why we're not going too crazy with it. Got to think about this realistically, especially when you're making weapons. You can add, little bits of damage to the blade of a sword and everything, but you don't ever want to add too much, especially because in Skyrim, or any other game for that matter, you're most likely dealing with a weapon that you bought from an NPC, or you just like made in a forge or something. Like, obviously there's weapons that you just kind of find lying around, and that's fine, but you want to go with the idea that it's only seen a little bit of use, if any, unless you want it to have like the most fine look imaginable, you're gonna want to add a little bit of character to it, and you'll be surprised by how much people really enjoy that with their weapons. So, like I said before, I'm not trying to be perfect with this. I want it to have a little bit of crudeness to it, because it might just be Morrowind's style overall, but that's just kind of how it looked from Morrowind. It looked handcrafted and like a little bit used. It's a little too deep. Like I said, I like the crudeness of it. And some just texture in there. I'm digging that. Do what we did on the other side, and I realize this part isn't part of the reference, but I do like it. Just that little bit of extra character. That's all you really need. Alright, cool. Now, you're probably thinking, wow, this thing looks a little bit beat up now. And yeah, that's the idea. Oh, yeah, there's these little indented bits down here. So we'll add those in real quick. That's not great. Like I said, I don't want these to be perfect. If I wanted these to be perfect, I'd just make like a little brush of them and just kind of slap them on, but I want them to look handmade. And that's really important. It's also got these like little rivets in it. That's neat. Those guys there. There we go. I like that. On the tops of them a little bit. That's looking better. It's looking better. Now, this one is a little bit more pronounced. So what I'm gonna do here is add this. Okay, oops, that's not great. You don't want it to be that imperfect. But I'm just adding that little ridge and then flattening it down, and it gives it a little bit more life. Flatten this down here. Kind of looks like a spooky little face. Ooh, what if I carved a spooky little face into this guy? That'd be neat. Nah, I don't think I'm gonna do all that. Now, thing is that I've had mirroring on this whole time, and with mirroring, it's great, but when I was adding all that little damage, it mirrored it, which is fine because it gave me a place to start, but you don't want it to be perfectly mirrored, because then it looks manufactured. You don't want it to look manufactured. That's the whole thing we're going for. Alright, cool. So, add a little bit of damage this side here, nothing too special. Here, down here a little bit. Good. Now the wrappings, I'm not gonna... Oh god. Oops. The wrappings, I'm not gonna touch. I don't want to touch the wrappings. I think they look fine as... Oh, the interior of this has its own little rivets here. Oh, oops. Lost my brush. It has its own little rivets. Let's add those guys. Let's add those guys in. That's nice. I like that. Alright, cool. So, I was talking earlier about how I never one for one it. I don't like to do that. I want to add a little bit of like Daedric carving into it. I think that would look really nice. Nothing too fancy. Just these little carving. Nothing too fancy. And this is usually how I do my carvings. It's just little bits here and there. Add some in here. Oops. There's no rhyme or reason to it, no pattern really, just little bits here. And I'm not gonna go too overboard with it. I used to go really overboard with it, but I kind of stopped doing that. I feel like it wasn't adding as much as I would have liked it to. Kind of made it a little bit like that's too much. What if I do a little bit of that? That looks kind of nice. And I'll do this. There we go. Perfect. I don't know guy there. Cute. Not cute. It's supposed to be scary. Scary. I like it. I'll add a little something on this side too. Like I said, not overdoing it too much, just a little something. And like none of these are in the reference, but I like it. It adds to it. Gives it, saying it a lot, gives it character. That's a fun game. Take a drink every time I say it gives it character. But it does, trust me. I'm doing this for a little while. Alright, cool. And I think that's the high poly done, actually. Wow, this high poly went really fast. Usually I don't go that fast. Usually I'm working on a high poly for like 3-4 hours. But this one was really quick. Just like boom, done. Alright, cool. Well, I'm very happy with that. I like how that looks. So, I'm gonna go back to our layout. And it is finished. That is the high poly done. I'm very pleased with that. So now, as I put this drawing tablet away, I'm going to talk to you for a little bit because I'm going to talk about what we are doing next. So next, we are going to be going over exporting this. Now here's the thing. I have my own little parameters set for exporting it, and that's great and all. But depending on what program you're using, if you're using Substance Painter, I would recommend doing pretty much exactly what I do, unless you have a way that you do it that you found in the past that you like. But if you're using like Mudbox or Mixer or Armor Paint or just Photoshop for your textures, I don't do that, so I don't know the best process for exporting to do that. I will say though, if you are doing that, take what I say with a grain of salt. You can still follow what I do to maybe give you an idea of how you can export it and see if that's something that you like. Try that out. But if you're not using Substance Painter, just take what I say with a grain of salt or don't do it at all. But if you are, go ahead and do what I do. Alright, so now we're ready. So we have our low poly and our high poly. We're going to save all this, just make sure that we have it. We're going to go to export, FBX, and now I have a little operator preset up here for Substance Painter. New folder. Actually, I'm just going to go listen to my textures folder. This is the high poly that we have right now, so we're going to underscore HP. Alright, so this is my operator preset. You can make these by literally just taking these boxes, pressing the plus right next to operator preset, and then giving it a name, but I already have one. We're going to do Substance Painter. Basically, the only difference between it is that I do Substance Painter, and then I only select Mesh and selected objects. This one you need no matter what, but for Substance Painter, I find it best to just kind of only do meshes, just so your FBX isn't super bogged down with any other stuff that you might have a part of it. It's not a huge deal, but I'd recommend it. So we're going to export it as an FBX. I'm going to think for a second, because it's a high poly. That was really fast. I'm going to hide it, low poly, file, export, FBX, change the name of it to LP. Yep, got my preset. Export, LP, done. Alright, cool. So this has been triangulated. It's been vertex painted, UV unwrapped. It has its high poly. It is ready to be textured right now. In this stage, perfectly ready. So we're gonna go do that now. I'm going to meet you back when I have Substance Painter up.